Good evening, boys and girls. How exciting is this? Our big St. Richard's camp out. So, I thought I'd read you a story. The Smartest Giant in Town by Julia Donaldson. Snuggle up. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. Oh, I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart new clothes, so he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the side, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. Now I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On a pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffling loudly. What's the matter? Asked George. Oh, it's my neck, said the giraffe. It's so very long, it's so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf. Oh, cheer up, said George, and he took off his stripy tie. Don't match my socks anyway, he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. Thank you, said the giraffe. George strode towards home. He sang to himself, my tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. What's the matter? Asked George. But it's my sail, said the goat. It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, as he tied it round to the mast of the goat's boat. He made a magnificent sail. Thank you, said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself, my tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat for a sail for a goat, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a teeny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. What's the matter? Asked George. It's a house, squeaked the mother mouse. It burnt down, and now we have nowhere to live. I wish I had a nice new house. Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. Who's giving me blisters anyway? He said, as the mouse and her baby scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. Thank you, they squeaked. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself, my tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe, my skirt's on a... My skirt? My shirt's on a boat for a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a campsite. Beside the tent stood a fox who was crying. What's the matter? Asked George. Oh, it's my sleeping bag, said the fox. I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag. Oh, cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his socks with diamonds up the side. It was tickling my toes anyway, he said, and the fox snuggled into it, made a very fine sleeping bag. Oh, thank you, said the fox. George hopped on singing to himself, my tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat for a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. What's the matter? Asked George. Oh, it's this bog. said the dog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path. Oh, cheer up, said George, and he took off his smart new belt. It was squishing my tummy anyway, he said, as he laid it over the bog. It made an excellent path. Oh, thank you, said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. My tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat for a sail for a goat. One of my shoes is a house for a mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. But my trousers are falling down and I'm the coldest giant in town. Suddenly George felt very sad and shivery. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some new clothes. He decided to turn around and he hopped all the way back to the shop. But when he got there, it was closed. Oh no, said George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met along the way. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of it. George took a closer look. My gown, he said. My dear old gown and sandals. George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. I'm the cosiest giant in town, he cried. And he danced all the way back home along the road. Outside his front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they said. Open it. George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. Look inside the card, George. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. I think the goat is going to read this to George. Inside it said, You gave your scarf to a cold giraffe, your shirt's on a boat for a sail for a goat, that's me. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here's a very fine crown to go with your sandals and gown for the kindest giant in town. The end. I love that story. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, snuggle down and get some sleep. Night night.